Hello and welcome to the Berry Center. My name is Mary Berry and I'm the Executive Director of the Center. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our observance of Earth Day. For 6 decades, my father has been writing about working landscapes and working people. He says that his father did the important work and he and his brother John took it up. The Berry Center is in its 11th year of working for small farmers and an economy and culture that will support the good use of the land and a fair wage for the people who work the land. We have taken up my grandfather's work. My greatest hope and the vision that keeps me going is that most American hope of the freed slaves, 40 acres and a mule, that we will become a nation of small landholders supplying their own needs and the needs of the urban people nearest them. If this is a hope that many of us share, then we must begin right where we are with the work that is right in front of us to do. The first Earth Day was celebrated in 1970 on April 22nd. My father spoke at the University of Kentucky. His speech was called Think Little. It has become our tradition to share with you, our membership and our friends, some of my father's words. This year, we are sharing readings from Conservation and Local Economy, first published in the book Sex, Economy, Freedom, and Community. Rereading this essay reminds me how prescient my father has been and how necessary his work remains. But it also fills me with hope because some things have improved in Henry County, Kentucky since these words were written in 1991. Today's reading makes clear his assertion that some of our old beliefs are laws that we break at our own peril. Nature allows for no waste, and we must take that seriously as a law. The next is that we must do unto others as we would have done unto us. This also is a law that we break at our own peril. Here he is. In our relation to the land, we are ruled by a number of terms and limits set not by anyone's preference, but by nature and by human nature. 1. Land that is used will be ruined unless it is properly cared for. 2. Land cannot be properly cared for by people who do not know it intimately, who do not know how to care for it, who are not strongly motivated to care for it, and who cannot afford to care for it. 3. People cannot be adequately motivated to care for land by general principles or by incentives that are merely economic. That is, they won't care for it merely because they think they should, or merely because somebody pays them. 4. People are motivated to care for land to the extent that their interest in it is direct, dependable, and permanent. 5. They will be motivated to care for the land if they can reasonably expect to live on it as long as they live. They will be more strongly motivated if they can reasonably expect that their children and grandchildren will live on it as long as they live. In other words, there must be a mutuality of belonging. They must feel that the land belongs to them and that they belong to it. And this belonging is a settled and unthreatened fact. 6. But such belonging must be appropriately limited. This is the indispensable qualification of the idea of land ownership. It is well understood that ownership is an incentive to care. But there is a limit to how much land can be owned before an owner is unable to take proper care of it. The need for attention increases with the intensity of use, but the quality of attention decreases as acreage increases. 7. A nation will destroy its land and therefore itself if it does not foster in every possible way the sort of thrifty, prosperous, permanent, rural households and communities that have the desire, the skills, and the means to care properly for the land that they are using. In an age notoriously impatient of restraints, such a list of rules will hardly be welcome. But that these are the rules of land use, I have no doubt. I am convinced of their authenticity, both by common wisdom and by my own experience and observation. The rules exist. The penalties for breaking them are obvious and severe. The failure of land stewardship in this country is the result of a general disregard for all of them. As proof of this failure, there's no need to recite again the statistics of land ruination. The gullies and other damages are there to be seen. Very little of our land that is used for logging, mining, or farming is being well used. Much of our land has never been well used. Those of us who know what we are looking at know that this is true. And after observing the worsening condition of our land, we have only to raise our eyes a little to see the worsening condition of those who are using the land and who are entrusted with its care. We must accept as a fact that by now our country, as opposed to our nation, is characteristically in decline. War, depression, inflation, usury, the attitudes of the industrial economy, social and educational fashions, all have taken their toll. For a long time, the news from everywhere in rural America has been almost unrelievedly bad. Bankruptcy, foreclosure, depression, suicide, the departure of the young, the loneliness of the old, soil loss, soil degradation, chemical pollution, the loss of genetic and specific diversity, the extinction or threatened extinction of species, the depletion of aquifers, stream degradation, the loss of wilderness, mountaintop removal, clear-cutting, population loss, the loss of supporting economies, the deaths of towns. Rural American communities, economies, and ways of life that in 1945 were thriving and, though imperfect, full of promise for an authentic human settlement of our land, are now effectively destroyed. The news of rural decline and devastation has been accompanied, to be sure, by a chorus of professional, institutional, and governmental optimists who continue to insist that all is well, that we are making things worse only as a way of making things better, that farmers who failed are merely inefficient producers, for whose failure the country is better off, that money and technology will fill the gaps, that government will fill the gaps, that science will soon free us of our regrettable dependence on the soil. We have heard that it is good business and good labor economics to destroy the last remnants of American wilderness. We have heard that the rural population is actually growing because city people are moving to the country and commuters are replacing farmers. We have heard that the rural economy can be repaired by moving the urban economy out into the country and by replacing rural work with work in factories and offices. And all the while, the real conditions of the rural land and the rural people have been getting worse. What does the death of a community, a local economy, cost its members? And what does it cost the country? So far as I know, we have no economists who are interested in such costs. Nevertheless, when you must drive 10 or 20 or more miles to reach a doctor or a school or a mechanic or find parts for farm machinery, the costs exist and they are increasing. As they increase, they make the economy of every farm and household less tenable. As people leave the community or, remaining in the place, drop out of the local economy, as the urban industrial economy more and more usurps the local economy, as the scale and speed of work increases, care declines. As care declines, the natural supports of the human economy and community also decline, for whatever is used destructively. We, in Henry County, Kentucky, are part of an agricultural region surrounded by cities that import much of their food from distant places. Though we urgently need crops that can be substituted for our once strong tobacco economy, we produce practically no vegetables or other foods for consumption in our region. Having no local food economy, we produce a less and less diverse food supply for the general market. This condition implies and virtually requires the abuse of our land and our people, and they are abused. We are also part of a region that is abundantly and diversely forested, and we have no forest economy. We have no local wood products industry. This makes it almost certain that our woodlands and their owners will be abused, and they are abused. We provide, moreover, a great deal of recreation for our urban neighbors, hunting, fishing, boating, and the like, and we have the capacity to provide more. But for this, we receive little or nothing, and sometimes we suffer damage. In our region, furthermore, there has been no public effort to preserve the least scrap of land in its pristine condition. And the last decade or so of agricultural depression has caused much logging of the last few stands of mature forest in private hands. Now, if we want our descendants to know what the original forest was like, that is, to know the original nature of our land, we must start from scratch and grow the necessary examples over the next 200 or 300 years. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.